everybody, it's Old School Nerd. It's Tuesday. That means we're up to the inaugural episode of Tuesday Travels with Old School Nerd. I'll give you two guesses as to where we're going today. Either it's the opening scene from the new Anchor video or the flag, or I could just tell you, yep, we're going to Spain. Spain. A lot of you may not know this, but it is not technically, it really is. It is a cultural hearth zone, a hearthland, if you will, of the world. We talk about India. We talk about Italy. We talk about China, Australia, Africa, but let's be honest. No country has more of a broad spread of culture and influence historically than this one. Spain. But here's my question. Why is it that there are 47,000 metal bands in one area of Germany and very few that come out of Spain that I've heard of? Why are there tons of metal and rock bands out of the UK, America, Japan? But why do I not know any from Spain so much? What is it about Spain, their history, their culture, that they don't have the top 10 metal bands in the world, historically? It confused me. So I thought, you know what? Every week, every Tuesday, we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about different countries around the world. Countries that may not be known for their metal music. And then we're going to find out why and what does the future hold for metal in that country. It's part of my metal journey. My name is Old School Nerd. I'm an old school metalhead from the 1980s. I left metal music in the 90s and 2000s because it got weird, man. Grunge and nu metal kind of ruined me. And then I went into that emo punk rock, punk pop phase, and I just kind of got lost. Well, back in 2018, you guys brought me back, and I've had such an amazing run, particularly when it comes to the fact that global metal music is so huge now. With the advent of social media, YouTube, streaming services, it doesn't matter whether you're a signed band from a label or not. If you're good, you can get an audience. So here we go. The country of Spain. On the Iberian Peninsula, this one has had more controversy and more quote-unquote discoveries, both culturally and, historically, than really any country I could think of. Even though Christopher Columbus was Italian, and yes, some dude named Erickson beat him to it, technically he discovered the Western Hemisphere. And he did it on behalf of the Spanish king and queen. Now, Spain sits on the Iberian Peninsula right next to Portugal. They're also responsible for the Spanish language. Yes, the Spanish language is spoken literally in every country of the entire Western Hemisphere except for 3. That's correct. Brazil speaks Portuguese. Yeah, the little country that could. America predominantly speaks English. And I have no idea what's going on with the Canadians. They're still arguing over English and French, and that doesn't really matter. But no country has more influence in the Western Hemisphere than Spain. Now, for the last couple of hundred years, they've kind of drawn back and become more isolationalists, but their cultural impact is still felt every single day. When you go and you listen to Tejano music, like I love Tejano music. It's a combination of southern Texas rock and groove mixed with blues, but it's also Spanish and Mexican influences. And when you go into South America, you see those broad influences of Spanish culture. Being a predominantly Catholic country historically, Spain has kind of stepped out of its Catholic roots. Granted, Spain is probably the most intense Catholic country outside of Italy. But through their history and through their various cultural issues and being invaded and then wars and then Spanish Inquisition and just the situations they're in, where Italy stayed more of a pure situation, Spain has had a dark history with their own culture. Now, when we talk about Spain, you're talking about a rich culture of both a people, food, religion, and yes, art and music. Now, you're watching videos being played on the video right now, starting with the band called Anchor. And I'm going to play some of the more predominant metal/rock bands that I was given a list of by all of you to kind of show the best of the best from Spain. Now, some of you will understand this when I say this. Spain's struggle with itself is only exacerbated by the fact that they seem to be pushed around by other countries over the last 1,000 years. You have the Moorish invasions in the early part of the last millennium, and then that North African culture still to this day kind of remains in there. It's a combination of Moorish culture, Spanish culture, Catholic religious influence, and a unique style of people, geographical features, and the fact that really they've been kind of isolated from everyone else for a while, which gives them a very unique sound in their music. What does this have to do with metal music? Well, for being right next door to France and being 2 countries over from Germany and literally being able to take a boat to England if you want to, why didn't Spain explode on the metal scene like so many other countries? And I think it has to do with the culture. Okay, it's also one of the reasons why you're not seeing a lot of metal bands come out of Mexico. And you're not seeing a lot of metal bands come out of South America until lately. You're seeing a lot of explosions of thrash metal in South America. You're seeing an explosion of cultural groove metal and unique styles of metal coming out of Spain now. And I think it's because metal, in its sense, was very Germanic. It was very British. It was very set in classical music. Symphonic music and classical compositionary music is the basis of what we know as traditional metal. Now, there are 2 basic forms of metal that everything else comes off of. There's the one that has its basis in the blues and the rock stylings of America. That's where you start having your southern rock turn into a southern metal groove. But most of your classic metal bands going back to the 60s, 70s, and 80s were always, if you look at the composition of a metal song, if you take a metal song and you convert the guitars, big drums, and bass into a symphonic orchestra, it plays like a classical music piece. That's how it was structured. You see a lot of bands that have that horse galloping tempo we all talk about. And I think that kind of stunted its growth and influence in Spain. Because Spain, similar to a lot of Latin American and South American countries, can't seem to draw a straight line through their music. That's not a dig. That's a compliment. Similar to the music of India, there's a certain kind of swing, a little bit of a groove. There has to be some sort of syncopation. There has to be a soulfulness in it. And I think for Spain, that comes from its North African roots in its culture through the clashes of the Moorish cultures and the Spanish cultures kind of intermingling, that even though those 2 cultures clashed throughout the last millennia, the influences stay the same. Similar to South America and Latin America, those influences of the indigenous population influence into the traditional music that the Spanish colonizers had brought to the culture. And I think it stays the same to this day. When you listen to Spanish music, you think of amazing acoustic guitars that are almost unmatched in their vibe. And even though they're very complex, there's a soul in them. Similar to when you listen to soul or blues music or traditional American rock in there, that's not a European influence. That's actually, unfortunately, one of the most beautiful forms of music that I love comes through an aspect of slavery, unfortunately. But the beauty of rock and soul music and blues and jazz comes from the incorporation of African influences into traditional European music. And when you put them all together, it made something beautiful. Unfortunately, its origins are horrible, but what we have from its inception to what it is now, it's one of my favorite forms of music. Okay, so I think the same thing occurs in Spain. They have North African influence. Like right now, you're seeing on the screen Vida Imana. I mean, this is a Spanish band that really flows into their unique percussion elements that sit outside of what we think of just traditional metal. I mean, hell, they have a side percussionist who's playing a djembe. A djembe is a West African instrument, and she wails on this thing in almost every song. Please check out that band. There she goes. Okay, so I think a lot of Spanish's culture is the fact that they don't sit in that traditional European classical music set. They like to sit on the outside. There's a heart. I think Spanish music comes from the heart more than it comes from the mind. If you can't feel it, they're not going to do it. And I think that kind of kept them away from metal from the most part throughout metal's history. And I think Spain is going to be one of those countries we need to look out for. Just in the last 2 years, I am seeing so much music coming out of Mexico right now from the metal scene. The metal scene is exploding in Mexico. Why? Something has occurred in metal in the last 10 years. It's the influence of, can we go very, very fast? Yeah. Can we go hard? Yeah. Can we go dark? Yeah. Hey, can we put a syncopated groove and kind of get funky with it? What? Yeah. We're seeing more and more bands. In fact, a whole genre of metal has come out called groove metal. Bands like, well, Ginger, where you take a aggressive, funky bass line and rhythm section and layer it in to where you have no idea where you're at in the form of it, and it doesn't even stick anywhere near any traditional format. It exploded, and more bands are doing it. Bands like Bloodywood from India, taking the Bengali Punjab swing, adding metal to it, and it's unique. Bands like Alien Weaponry from New Zealand, taking that Maori culture and exploding it into their metal. Taking cultural aspects of where you're from and using it as the heartbeat of your metal give you a unique identity, and that's what the real force behind that is. Now, a lot of current metal bands out of Spain are doing that to their benefit. I'm just hoping more people get to see it. Now, there's not to say that Spain hasn't had their share of big metal bands. Bands like Saratoga, Rata Blanca, Tierra Santa, and Heroes de Silencio, okay? In fact, if you think about a band, Saratoga, they're a big Spanish metal band, but they're actually more famous now because their former drummer is one of the biggest YouTube channels for music in the world. El Estepario Siberiano is not fucking Russian. Stop saying that in the comments. He's actually from Spain, and he's now he's with multiple projects. He has his own band where he got together with two lads from the UK, and they're called The Cost. I've done a few reactions to them. But if you don't know who El Estepario Siberiano is, you haven't been paying attention. I.e., the next video that you're going to see pop up is actually from Saratoga, his previous band. There's the guy right there playing the drums. So Spain is at the forefront of metal again in the best ways. Not to be like anyone else, but the fact that they are who they are. A unique culture with a unique cult style. Their music comes from the heart. So now that metal as a whole doesn't just gatekeep to you have to be thrash, you have to be death, you have to be speed metal, heavy metal, and that's it. No, there's so many genres of metal, I don't even like talking about them anymore because there's just everything. That's the whole point. At some point, a lot of these Spanish bands are going to realize that there's a freedom. They can be whoever they are, and they don't have to try to be the big metal band. I feel like a lot of Spanish heavy metal bands during the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s were stunted by the fact that they were forced to play in industry type metal music to fit the industry standard by what the industry said they had to do. And I think it stunted them creatively. And I don't think they really stood out. I believe that if the music industry had just allowed Spanish metal bands to just be who they were, number one, Spanish, and then be metal bands, I think metal would have been better for it. And I think a lot more Spanish metal bands would have been up on the likes of, has anyone ever told Rammstein they can't be German? Is anyone going to tell Gojira they can't be French? No. In fact, who you are and the culture of where you come from is now integral in who you are as a band. Could you see Bloodywood playing traditional heavy metal? No. Could they? Yeah. Would it stunt them? Oh my God, yes. And I think that's part of the beauty of what we're coming through now. So the whole part of this entire series I'm going to be doing over the next few months is every Tuesday we're going to come here and we're going to talk about different countries. I think Spain has struggled to have giant, world-renowned. There is no Metallica from Spain. There's no Rammstein from Spain, okay? They don't even have a five-finger death punch, right? No. But here's the thing. I think that now, because who you are and where you come from can be part of your metal. If you're Spanish, they want you to be Spanish first. And then if you want to be full of spikes with long hair and tattoos and play really fast with a big epic guitar solo, that comes after all of that. And I think that's the key for modern metal that's coming up. The more metalcore bands I see from Germany, they're really leaning into that German techno vibe. You're seeing a lot more of that. It's that cultural vibe of precision and layering that makes metalcore music out of Germany so great. The hardcore scene out of the UK. Let's not even get started on Nordic countries. I think the metal bands in the Nordic countries are starting to go out into the woods more. They're starting to put paint and they're starting to do more rituals. I think it's great for them. American bands need to get their act together. I'm seeing a lot of bands from America start to lean in to country and those kind of roots in their metal music and in the blues and jazz. And that's working for them. I think part of it is I'm a big fan of seeing global music. That's a big thing I've always asked you guys to give me. And I've been fortunate that you guys have taken me all over the world. And I talk about it all the time. The insurgence and explosion of thrash music in South America is untouchable. The creativity coming out of Canada is exactly what you expect. I'm just glad they're doing it again. New Zealand, they scare me. Okay, but Australia, come on. Australia's not even playing by anybody's rules. They don't care. Japan, okay. Everything that Japan is known for, doing everything to the absolute pinnacle of what can be achieved, and then taking the extreme creativity of the Japanese culture. Get out of the way. Japan is crazy. India, they're starting to catch up. When a band like Bloodywood starts to set the table and India's realizing, okay, metal music kind of works like this, that's going to start taking place. We're starting to see bands out of Africa. Now look, if more African bands start playing metal music and infusing African cultural rhythms and music into metal, that could be the next hotbed of metal. Get out of the way. The Africans do it a completely different way, and their rhythm style cannot be touched. Period. I don't care who you are. Go check them out. All right, so Spain. A beautiful culture that I think previously their metal bands wanted to be big metal bands, but had to take their culture out of their music to try to be like everyone else, and I think it was a disservice to them. I think now, with the way that YouTube and the streaming services are, where Spanish metal bands can be Spanish first and metal bands after, I think that's only going to do better for them. So I'm going to put a list of metal bands that all of you have given me to check out. Some of them are the classics of metal, like Saratoga and Tierra Santa. And then some of them are like this one, Dryad. I don't even know what Dryad is, but it just popped up on my list for you guys to check out. And they've got an amp in the middle of a field for somewhere with a plane. I don't know why. It's that's what they're doing. But they're young and they're creative, and I think we need to start paying attention. I have no idea where I'm going next week. It might be New Zealand. It might be Indonesia. Hell, I may go, I don't know, Morocco? Do you want to go to Morocco? No, that's next door to Spain. I think it might be the same thing. Doesn't matter. All right, everybody. My name is Old School Nerd. Spanish metal. I think it is time that Spain steps into the light. I mean, Gojira had their moment for French metal music this year in the Olympics. I think it's time for Spain to say, you know what? We are Spain. So many cultures around the world have influence for us. Maybe our music should be more us and less other people. And I think that would be an awesome thing. Love one another. Take care of each other. We're all stuck on this mud ball together. Check out Spanish metal music. I think you might be surprised. You're really going to enjoy it because the new stuff, man, that's just a fun time. And nobody moves like the Spanish rhythmically. They're really unique like that. And with that, we'll see you next week. Hey everybody, before I go, I just want to give you guys an update. I filmed this video for Tuesday Travels with Old School where we go to Spain and I try to explain what I don't know about Spanish metal and the history and what it's going to happen next. And I filmed it live on Twitch like an idiot, or maybe it's been the best thing I ever did. Because since we filmed that video and we stopped filming, those people above my head decided to take me on a complete crazy tour of every Spanish metal band that I don't know about. And it has been one hell of a ride. So, like I said before, yeah, I think Spanish music, metal, is going to be just fine. Thanks for watching, everybody. And if you enjoyed this video, give us a like. It really helps the channel grow. Also, if you want to subscribe, right over there. A big thank you to all my Patreons out there for everything you do. And if you want more content like this, check them out above. Remember, love one another, take care of each other. We're all stuck on this mud ball together. We'll see you later.